Welcome back to the Mountain View Post Radio Hour. My name's Kirsten Swan.
And my name is Kate Davis.
So we're about to take you inside a community meeting that happened last night at the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club in response to a string of BB gun shootings that happened earlier this week at the corner of Mountain View Drive and North Park Street. Now, first, a little background information. No one was seriously injured, but there were about 4 people struck by BBs earlier this week at that intersection. And so, naturally, there have been some questions and concerns from parents in the neighborhood and people wondering what's the follow-up and how are we going to stop this, because one of the actually 2 kids were hit. The first one on Monday being a student at Clark Middle School.
Yeah.
So this meeting that happened last night at the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club, it involved an APD officer, Sergeant Victor Dragano, who came in to answer some questions and kind of explain to concerned community members how the investigation's happening. Yeah, and kind of what they're doing and asking, answering follow-up questions about how these sorts of things are handled, and also, like you were mentioning a little bit ago, what people can do to maybe feel more safe in that area because they still haven't arrested anyone.
I was saying that since a lot of kids walk past that place anyway, if the kids are in a group, if one person gets shot and someone sees that, they can be able to call the police.
Right. So maybe walking in a group.
Yeah, because a lot of kids walk that way anyway.
Right, and this is the corner for people who maybe aren't in the neighborhood a lot. This is the corner right by West Berlin, and there's a GCI store and some apartments. It's the corner of North Park.
It's very close to the
schools and Red Apple and
a bunch of
restaurants.
places. So if they can get hit there could be other places they could also get hit, because I'm saying if you shoot from one place and then there's 4 people who go off in the world knowing that they got shot, you wouldn't probably want to move. So Sergeant Dragano came to the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club yesterday to address some of these questions and to explain kind of the investigation so far. And the meeting started off with a few questions from Tasha Hotch, who is Patrick's mom and also the vice president of the Mountain View Community Council.
One of the things that I initially thought was, why didn't he call the police once he realized that he was shot? And then I had to file a report, and thinking of all the times that I've called APD, because I call at least once a week for something going on, that there usually isn't a response. I usually have to send pictures and do an online report. I've given feedback that my reports weren't read. So my son said that he didn't call anyone because no one responds. And I think that there needs to be better conversation about when you call, when's the right time to just well, that's kind of your problem, right? Or the other frustration that I felt was that there were other instances of people getting shot on that corner and no one else had filed a police report until my mom had posted something on Facebook and people were like, hey, didn't so-and-so just get shot there too? So I was messaging people and saying, hey, please file a report. I contacted the school. They said no one else had said anything had happened over there, but then lo and behold, a little girl got shot over there too. And I was like, okay, so what are we doing? I haven't had anyone call me back. I've had lots of people send me leads about things that are happening, which I'll tell you, as a parent, I'm very tempted to just go check on these things myself, but I haven't.
Well,
but
to some degree, there's nothing
feedback,
wrong with that. Just
right?
don't put yourself in a situation that's dangerous for yourself, obviously.
But people have given me really specific, I think it's my neighbor. They live at this address. Here's why I think it was them.
There was apartments pointed out to the officers that responded that night, and they swept. There was 7 different officers that showed up and went all over that place for a while, and they checked all through there. Nothing was found that night, and so obviously we're not going to be kicking in people's apartment doors and stuff.
Right.
But if somebody was to see something like a gun barrel in a window or some movement in a window, depending on how much good information we can get, then we can potentially, at some point, go to a court and say, hey, this is how much we have. Can we get a search warrant to go? So if they saw a gun in a window, that's a big thing. We could have very probably got a search warrant to go talk to a specific apartment, right? If they just see movement in a window, that probably wouldn't be enough because it'd be people looking out their windows. So in the interest of protecting everybody's civil rights and everything else, we're not going to go crazy, right? We can't do that. We have to have a reasonable approach to that. So that's what happened that day. That was on the, let's see, which one was that? That was the one with the 7 different officers. That was the 26th. That's Monday, I think, wasn't it?
Okay.
So the 26th, and that was right around almost 6 p.m. when those first reports were coming in. And that's where I had 2 different guys that were walking, didn't even know each other.
Right.
Just normal pedestrians going up and down Mountain View Drive would get hit by the BB guns, you know.
Hold on, Karen wants to
Yeah.
listen in.
Was it my question is, was the time that it happened,
Okay,
was it the
you're
same
on
time for
speakerphone.
everybody? Or was it like...
No, it's varied quite a bit. I haven't had a chance to read the report about the little girl because that had to get followed up on, because this has like been on all week. They've been trying to track down these leads. So
Right.
the little girl and her family was talked to this morning or this afternoon or something like that. And so that report I haven't seen yet. So I don't know when exactly, but I believe it was between the evening and possibly that next morning, because I know our last report for the other incidents was almost 10 a.m. on the 27th. So that's when the 3 different people were hit, 2 different reports then, and then her report's our 3rd report.
Gotcha.
So those are the 3 that I know of as far as actual different reports being called into us about it, you know. So if someone thinks they have a neighbor, that's something we got to check out. We'd be very interested in to find out who that might be, because people who live next door to people generally have some sense of what goes on in a house,
Right.
you know, and they may have really good information for us.
Okay.
So what we have so far, you're probably curious, so you just said you didn't get feedback, and that's not
Right.
normal. I'm going to sound like I'm throwing out the couched line or something, but the general thing with police work is there's 2 problems that keeps the community from getting the feedback in the timely manner that they would like it. A is the pure volume of stuff that's coming in. And you watch the news or listen to the radio, that's like the tip of the iceberg. And in the old days, you could listen to a police scanner and have a better awareness of what's going on. But I could turn on my radio right now, and you can hear all the stuff going on in the background as I'm talking and give you a good sense of things, okay?
Right.
So there's pure volume. Generally speaking, at this time of day, like say for example at 6 p.m., that's a busy time. Right. People start coming home from work, early evening, they're getting ready, everybody's stressed, they have the next day to go do things like that. So that's a high volume for us, right? There could be anywhere easily from 10 upward, 10 like what we call priority calls. There's different priorities. It's kind of like an ER. When you go to the hospital, the triage system in the ER, the people with the worst injuries get help first, even if the other guy with the stitches who needs stitches been there for 3 hours. So kind of the same thing, right? So we have priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. type calls.
Right.
So priority 2s and 3s are pretty serious. Those are things like people fighting. A 2 would be something with a weapon. So those are higher priority, obviously, right? So something like this, these officers, the 7 officers went, they were going license sirens to that incident to try to catch whoever it was. Because technically a BB gun and a pellet gun, even though they're air-powered guns, they're classified as firearms within our city.
Right.
And it's a serious charge, you know. You'd be getting misconduct involving a weapon type charge, which is the same as shooting a normal firearm off. Also assault charges for something like that. So it's pretty serious. So these guys are going lights and sirens to that. So those are the instances we know about. The things they did initially was, of course, talk to everybody they can. They went, knocked on doors, canvassed the houses, the neighborhoods, the back streets, and where we know trails cut between buildings and all those kind of things. Those are the areas that are searched on something like that, and that's what they did that night. And then there is also a possibility of maybe some video. We'll go to businesses. We try to find people with security cameras, because a lot of times those are pretty helpful.
Okay.
A lot of times they're also pretty poor quality video, but with technology getting better, it's getting a lot better for us. So we look for businesses or homes that have cameras like facing out their driveways into the street. A lot of times we'll see something going on in the far background of that camera that is related to what we had and try to investigate, but maybe not expected. So we have a business that's reviewing video now. Keep my fingers crossed, something will come of that. We have very vague suspect information. Technically, I can't give specific suspect information. In this case, it's vague enough I can provide it. It's essentially what we have is one person was seen wearing a ski mask running after one of the people was shot by a BB gun, but that person that was shot with the BB gun didn't know if that person was related. They didn't see the person carrying a gun or anything. They just saw somebody running. So it's possible.
Right.
Ski mask is kind of suspicious in and of itself,
right.
I saw a couple people walk around with dust masks and things and that, but we have a tendency to be suspicious of things as cops. That's our job. So
Right.
if something looks like it's probably not good, we're going to check it out, you know? So that's curious to me. I like that. Trouble was the dude ran off and we don't know who it is, if it was even a guy, likelihood. But the other vague information we got on one of the cases was it could be coming from the second or third story of the apartment building, which is probably the ones down there y'all are thinking about.
Right.
And that's why the officers were checking all through there. But again, nothing was seen in the window that helps us clue in much, you know. And then another guy, one of the males of the two that was hit that first night on around 6 p.m.
So the two gentlemen were not together.
No, they were completely separate people. So there's like 4 different victims
So there was one
documented in 3
Patrick
instances.
was around 3:15. We have one gentleman at 6, and who was the other one?
Same time frame. Yeah, those 2 instances happened nearly back to back. The way it was
Gotcha.
reported
Oh,
by
okay.
those 2 guys, like one guy got hit,
Right.
he runs around a corner thinking he'd be safe. Oh, he didn't know where it came from.
Right.
Maybe that building, right? And then he calls us, and the officers get there, and as they're interviewing him, another guy walks up and say, "Hey, I was just hit with a BB gun," because the medics were there helping the first guy. And so it all happened like right then. So whoever was doing it was clearly out watching. He's probably watching us show up, in fact,
Exactly.
and talk to these guys. So that was like right back to back. And so those guys are all documented in one police report, but it is
Okay.
basically 2 different victims unrelated. Yeah.
Okay.
Run off
But
at the mouth.
Officer Gargano, I'm Patrick's grandmother.
Right.
And, and for the majority, I would say public hasn't minimized or trivialized the assault on my grandson. Well, I guess my concern has been, because I receive videos, apparently someone has access to the video cameras on that corner. And so his APD requested copies of those video cameras. And the person had shared a video with us, although it was for Tuesday and not Monday. And he said there are 6 business cameras on that corner.
That's good to know. You don't know by chance any of the specific businesses, do you?
Well, I'm assuming from the view on one was definitely GCI.
Okay.
I mean, I would assume that Brown Jug might have one on the backside.
Yeah, I know Brown Jug's one of them they were checking with.
And
So-
I don't know why Cook Inlet, I mean, they're top of the line, their buildings, why they wouldn't have cameras at least out on their sidewalks.
Do you know if they happen to have any out there?
I'm not sure, but I
I've
would
seen
definitely
it
check
when
with
we
Tyler.
were out there
cool.
yesterday. I saw a camera. I don't know whose it was, but it was
On Tip Inlet?
It was. I think that's their building.
It is- I mean, it's
So-
definitely
Well,
a building,
both those buildings on
Yeah.
Park and on Mountain View Drive.
But the
are
question
owned
is,
by
So
the
it's like by the bike
corporation.
rack in the middle
yeah.
is a
Okay.
camera.
Yeah, those are both Cook Inlet's building. That's why I was saying maybe if it's somebody out of one of those apartments, they would definitely be the appropriate person to find out, you know, because I know for a fact they have a 0 tolerance of pretty much anything. So,
Yeah, and I guess my concern
Like,
is,
yeah.
you know, because I'm originally from a village in southeast Alaska, all my family is, and but we moved here to Anchorage and been here off and on since the 80s. Is this racially motivated, like the 2001 paintball attacks downtown?
I think
That
with the
all
wide...
victims been
No, they're not all of one
Native.
color or ethnicity for sure. So
Okay.
it looks like my gut on this, without knowing the guy doing this, right? My
Right.
gut is somebody who thinks it's funny, and they're
Right.
out there picking on damn people. You know,
Right.
they're seeing people walking down that street on that corner, and they see it as a target of opportunity, probably.
well,
So
I guess
that's my gut from reading what I've seen in the 3 reports
And I
I've
went there
had.
to take pictures with my grandson because, you know, that, I said, oh no, you need to change your pants, wear the exact same pants you were wearing that day, you know, the day before. Is that I saw several screens in that Cook Inlet building that were removed, and there's no reason to remove your screen from your window. And one of those happened, which was the tip that Tasha forwarded, that she stayed to Officer Casey. It appeared that unit may be the one the shots came from.
Because the screen's out.
That
Or
appears
is
to
there
me.
something
I mean,
else?
no,
That's
the
what you're
screen's
thinking.
removed
Yeah.
from
But
on
you didn't
both
have-
sides. I mean, it's
Right.
a corner unit. It's removed on Park and
So on
you
two
drive.
different sides, yeah. That's
Exactly.
pretty, I call that suspicious, frankly.
I do. Why would you remove your screen?
Yeah,
You know,
yep,
I don't remove my screens. I
yep.
don't want
Neither do I.
plugs in.
So,
You know.
when something looks odd, you have to think about it. Why
Well,
does that look
well, I
odd?
think
So
it
that's
is,
good.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I mean, it's very frustrating. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it was a very small percentage of the population who's minimalized it. Well, it's just a BB gun.
Well, you know, people say all kinds of junk on the internet.
But
though. I wouldn't pay attention
correct.
to that.
But as you've stated, the discharge of a weapon
Mm-hmm.
within the municipality of Anchorage,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it's illegal.
That's right.
Doesn't matter the caliber.
Well, see, even regardless of that, the potential for injury, you know, a poor
Of
kid,
anyone.
kid could
I
lose
mean,
an eye,
I
things. They could get serious injuries from
haven't
that.
heard what these other 3 people where they were bodily shot at.
Oh well, this I can tell you, it was in sensitive places like around the neck, face, things like
Right.
that. So someone could easily lose an eye from this idiot doing this.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty
Well,
serious,
that's
and that would
right.
be arguably a felony crime right there. That level
Yeah.
of an assault.
And,
So
yeah, and I mean, he didn't see a vehicle or see. I mean, I haven't heard that any of the people who were attacked actually saw someone.
no, they like I said, they have vague information at best. The one person saw somebody in a ski mask running. Another person talked to some guys in a vehicle a few minutes before he was actually shot. So he's speculating that it may or may not have been related.
Right.
And then the other folks were pointing at that building, and that's why the officers went there that night, the first
Okay.
thing. So
Gotcha.
it's pretty interesting on the. So here, getting back to your question, I've been doing this job a little while, and I've heard this much of my career. And before I was in this career, I wondered the same things on when you should call the police and when you shouldn't. I'll tell you right now, you call us anytime something don't look right, and let us do what we can to figure it out. You are not going to be satisfied, though, every time you call us. There's just no two ways about it. And the reasoning is because of the prioritization system. It sounds like a cop-out, but the reality is there's a finite number of officers working on the street, and there's a number of calls coming in. And when there's a high volume like that, you go to each one as fast as you can. That's why we get speeding complaints all the time, quite frankly. And whether it's lights and sirens or not, we're hustling to get there. And people are always angry because they've been waiting hours or whatever. But we get there as quick as we can. We don't. These guys on this shift, they don't get lunch breaks. They'll make time maybe to go to the bathroom in their 10-hour shift, but there's no downtime. Even on days these days, we have 3 different shifts, by the way: a day shift, a swing shift, and a mid shift. Even on
Is that
a day
8 hours?
shift,
Because I thought.
10 hours, and they overlap.
Right.
Yeah, they
There was
overlap a little
lots.
bit. What happens is even day shift is busy like swings used to be years ago when people would be getting home after work, which is the shift we're on right now. And so, long story short, there's only so many people that work in this community.
What
Politically,
is
there's
the
only
priority?
been so many people that have made police growth important politically over the years, and those that have been able to bring up our numbers. But I will tell you, if you've ever lived anywhere else in this country, we are way below where we probably should be. We're getting to numbers they think are realistic, and
How many
all the
officers
rest
per
of it.
population should there be?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't tell you, but
Well,
if you
you're
compare us to
comparing
some
it to
places,
other
yep, if you
places.
compare us to some places, this department of this size, for our community size, could easily use 200 sworn more officers.
So what?
There
what
are
you
communities
saying?
that have that many more.
200 sworn officers per 100,000? What's the ratio?
Well, I don't know the ratio, literally. Just speculating our size compared to other communities of roughly our size, and this is what I hear through kind of grapevine information from talking to officers and other agencies when I hear, how many guys you got working for you? Like if we'll go to a training or something, for example, we'll hear this. So it's kind of institutionalized knowledge over time. It's just we know our numbers are low, but our government will only be able to hire so many to do the job with the needs of the community, because the biggest problem is finding qualified people anymore. That's the biggest problem. We don't take just anybody up here like they do a lot of places. It's kind of a strict hiring process. You can't have anything that looks negative in your background, quite frankly. So comparing our agency to other agencies, we have a pretty high threshold of what people have to qualify to be able to get hired by us. And the reason is because every officer that goes to any case, like you call us, the officer that shows up, he's actually an investigator at the same time. He's just not a uniform showing up to take a report and leave. We actually start investigating the crime right there. We don't pass everything off to our detectives like they do in bigger communities around, like all the major cities in our country. Those communities, their officers who show up, they're not tasked with doing as much investigation typically as our officers are. Our officers actually do follow-up. They call back the citizens when they have something to report, things like that. And you're not getting callbacks all the time, I get that. But we actually investigate from square one. It's a different way of doing police work. Some communities will have detective divisions that are big enough that the officers will do the basic contacts, get names, contact information, addresses, find out what happened, charge people if there's probable cause to arrest somebody right away, and then everything goes to detectives. And those guys, like if you watch the TV shows, for example, you always see the guys in suits come out and just kind of take their information from the guy in the uniform. Well, that's like that in most big cities. It's not how it is here. The officers that come out, they're starting the investigation right away. Generally, that leads to better investigations because we can get the information fresh. But we're only going to be able to go with the information we have, and that leads to the priorities problem, right?
If someone is walking in that area, they have to walk in that area, what are some strategies that you would tell us or you can give us that we could or should, or we might say don't worry about anything to people that have to walk in that area until we find out what's happening? Is there anything we can do preventative to make sure people are safely walking?
I would say this, and it's... I'm a big self-defense guy. I'm a huge supporter of our Constitution, the individual's right to carry and be armed if they choose to be, and things of that nature. You don't see that publicly from police in a lot of parts of the country, especially back east, but in Alaska we're a little different. We have a lot of rural community, and that's more of a way of life here. If someone threatens you with a weapon, you can pretty much do what you need to do to defend yourself, but nothing more. You can get away. As far as dealing just by walking through the area, so basic self-defense comes down to awareness, right? We've probably all heard that.
Right.
Being aware of your surroundings is huge. You don't want to be out there on your phone sitting at the corner like we'll all drive out of here right now and we'll see everybody on their phones with their head down. That's horrible. You can't do that because those are the kind of guys actually picked on by the more predatory type criminals. They look for people who they identify as victims. Now out here, this looks pretty random as far as these BB gun specific instances, but still having your head up when you're walking down the street, looking around like you're taking note of what's going on around you, that is huge. People, I mean, they've interviewed these hardened criminals in prisons on how they select the people they victimize, and it's the people that aren't really paying attention. So that's the first thing. You got to be paying attention when you're walking down the road. Now, that's not necessarily going to stop you from some dude seeing you're not looking at him and popping you with a BB gun, but that's the first thing you got to do. And then if you do hear something or see something, if you think it's a BB gun, you know, what are you going to do? You get behind something so you're not shot? Well, first you got to kind of know where it's coming from. Even with normal firearms that are powder discharge firearms, if you hear a shot ring out, finding and locating the source of incoming fire is a very hard thing to do. So there's no surprise to me that these people who were shot at with BB guns had no idea where it was coming from, because that is a hard thing to do. Soldiers overseas, police officers domestically, you hear shots ringing out and you might have a sense of it's maybe coming from over this direction. But it's like a big part of that 360 circle around you, right? But being heads up will help you determine that. So that's the next thing. Be heads up so you can figure out where it's coming from. Because we're no good when we show up if we can't figure out where to start looking.
That was Sergeant Victor Dragano with the Anchorage Police Department answering community questions at the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club last night after a string of BB gun shootings earlier this week.
I feel like after people listen to where they think it's coming from, when people walk down that street, now they can look where they think it's going to come from. So, like, if they want to make sure that they're not going to get looked, like, they can see where it's coming from, they're probably going to look in that direction, so they're more safer. But I feel like the person probably moved since the police reports and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe, unless they live in a certain place and are doing it from a fixed location. But I guess that's one of the things that police are looking into. And like the sergeant said, one of the best things you can do to be safe is just to be extremely aware of your surroundings and look around and kind of see what's going on. So we're going to head to a quick break here in a minute, and when we come back, we will have a recap of all the events taking place in the neighborhood this week and next. I know you have a full schedule and some exciting things, especially for Clark Middle School students, coming up next week. Welcome back to the Mountain View Post Radio Hour. My name's Kirsten.
And I am Kate, and we're both co-hosts.
Yes, thank you for tuning in today. This is the radio show about all things Mountain View, the neighborhood in Northeast Anchorage. We're at the part of the show now. We're getting towards the end, and we have a few events that we talked about in the beginning, but maybe you missed that part of the show and want to jot them down on your calendar now, because I know it's a full week and we're getting into spring, and especially for Clark Middle School students, you have some cool things going on next week. So can I start, though, because I have one that's happening right now? Okay, so first of all, Easter egg hunt. It starts here actually in a few minutes, so maybe you're driving around town and you don't have anything to do in the next few minutes and you have some kids with you. There's an Easter egg hunt that starts at 10:05, I believe it officially starts, but 10 a.m. at Clark Middle School. It's organized by True North Church. Hunts are divided by age. They have candy and hamburgers and hot dogs afterward during a cookout. The whole event goes from 10 a.m. to noon, so if you're in Mountain View and looking for something to do this morning, go check it out.
And make sure you know, I'm pretty sure it's on the track field.
Okay.
So you don't try to go into the school. It's behind the school.
Right, outside. So maybe head to that back area there and look for all of the people and the eggs, and looks like it's going to be a great time.
And so if you weren't with us in the beginning, there is a community-wide Women's History Month luncheon at the Anchorage Senior Center. And there is going to be kids from Clark.
And that's taking place today?
Yeah, it's at 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And there's going to be the informers from Clark Middle School, and there's going to be students from Clark Middle School. Unfortunately, I'm not being able to be there, but I'm hoping, since you guys are hearing this, you'll be able to go.
Right, and you're doing your own informants here on the radio show this morning. So tell us one more time what the informers do.
We memorize parts that we sometimes write, sometimes our Miss Pinkney writes them for us. Mm-hmm. We memorize them, and then we get all suited up, and then we say them from memory to everybody. Well, to a lot of people.
Excellent. So people who are attending that Women's History Month luncheon today at the Anchorage Senior Center are in for a treat.
Yes,
special informants.
I've heard what they're saying, and it's pretty amazing, because there is a list of women who are being honored with that, and so they are speaking. Each person is speaking about a different person who is getting.
Okay, so people who are attending the luncheon will get all of that history and kind of biographical information about the ladies who are being honored today.
Yeah.
How nice. And now that's not the only thing Clark Middle School students are doing. You have a very busy spring ahead of you. So you have the informances today at the Women's History Month luncheon, and then next week there's a kind of a cool event happening citywide, and it's a celebration of all of Alaska's Olympians and kind of a homecoming celebration for Keegan Randall, who's
the gold medalist.
Right, who's one of our gold medalists. And I understand that Clark Middle School students will have a pretty cool role to play in that.
Well, the Clark Middle School drumline is going to be playing at the celebration in Town Square. It is April 4th, I think.
Okay.
But we'll talk about it this weekend. If any of us are able to go, I probably will. If it's still on, making sure it's happening.
And we'll make sure we'll get all of the information, all the updated, make sure all of our information is right as to when that's happening and what time, and we'll put it on our community calendar, which you can find on mountainviewpost.com.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to know exactly when they're performing and where you can catch them, and maybe we can get a recording too and have it on the show next week if people aren't able to make it.
Yeah.
That
probably I'm gonna email it to you, so you'll probably put it up Tuesday.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a great time. And so the one last event, it's not coming up here until May, but now is the time to register, and that's the Faster Than a Falcon 5K. It's a fundraiser foot race, all proceeds going to the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club. It's actually free for students in elementary, middle, or high school. So, Kate, maybe you've been wanting to run a 5K, or some of your...
I think I have run a 5K before.
Really? I've never done it.
I did Girls on the Run, I think. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I've never run a 5K, but I think if I was, this would be the one I would do because it's literally right outside my house.
Maybe this year we could do it together.
Hey, I think that's a good idea. We'll have to talk about that a little more. Luckily, we do have some time to talk about it because the race itself is May 12th. Registration is open now, and if you're an adult and you don't qualify, you can't do it for free. We do have to pay because we're supporting a good cause here. But there's early registration up until May 5th, and that's only $15 for adults. So make sure you register before May 5th. You can go to fasterthanafalcon.info. It's fasterthanafalcon.info. And that's the website where you can see the course map and learn more about the event and also register. So $15 before May 5th for adults, and then after that, it's $22, and of course, free for students, and it all goes towards the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club.
And you could win prizes if you try to beat the Falcon.
Oh, right. Yes, there is a Falcon. It's a person in a Falcon costume, but it's
No one
definitely
ever
hard to
knows
miss.
who it is. It's a mystery.
Except when you see him running down the street, you know, the Falcon. It's pretty eye-catching.
Everybody's like, oh my gosh.
Yes, so that's a fun community event that happens every spring in Mountain View, and registration is open now. So check it out, fasterthanafalcon.info. And of course, Kate, we always have all of this information on our website, which is mountainviewpost.com.
Always.
Always. So if you want to catch up maybe on some more neighborhood events that are happening, or perhaps you missed an event and are looking for some coverage of what happened, we might have that as well. But remember, you can always find us online at mountainviewpost.com. Kate, I think that about brings us to the end of our show today. Did we miss anything? Do you have anything else?
No.
Oh, perfect. I know that it's a beautiful day out, and there is an Easter egg hunt starting here in a few minutes. So with that said, I think we'll see everybody next week.
Have a good day.